Hello and welcome back to the Prepping for Everything podcast with me, your host, Emily. If you listened to last week's podcast, you'll know that I said I wouldn't go on about pregnancy and birth forever, but I didn't quite realise just how many questions I left unanswered and you all flooded my inbox. So I thought, why not take this episode to really go through everything and answer some of those burning questions. Before we get into it, I just want to put a disclaimer out there and say that I am no expert in this. My husband Will and I have only just welcomed our first baby, Rosemary, and what you're going to hear throughout this episode is my own passion, opinions, experience and research that I have done. Take the parts that resonate, leave the parts that don't, and as always, ensure to make your own informed decisions on anything. With that said, let's dive straight into it. A couple of days ago, I took questions on Instagram, and this is what we're going to go through, answering as many as I possibly can within the time limit that we have here. So our first question comes from Catherine, and she asked, did you struggle with the pain? It wasn't easy, but it was completely manageable. I think it's hard for first-time mums in particular because you don't really know what you're going into. You don't know what to compare it to. You speak to a lot of people that say it's like really intense period pains. And for me, I guess it kind of felt similar to that, except I just mainly felt it in my back. But I know I've said it before, it is pain with a purpose. You know that you're working towards something and that the pain is there for a reason. I know a lot of people, especially in the sort of hypnobirthing circles, don't even like to refer to the sensations as pain. A lot of people call it surges or waves just to really help try and recondition what you're feeling. I definitely did feel a bit of pain. I'm not going to lie on that front. I can remember I was in the pool at one point and I was just begging to go to hospital and get an epidural. But I think it was just mainly tiredness and I didn't want to do it anymore. Bless. Will took me in his hands and just said, well, this baby needs to come out anyway, so you can sleep after you're done. And I think, yeah, that's the sort of reality check that I needed at that point. He was loving, but very straight to the point. And it definitely helps knowing that every single thing that you're feeling is bringing you closer to meeting your baby. You're not just feeling it for no reason. There's a big purpose behind it, and it's completely manageable. Well, it was for me anyway. I read a study recently online that said, in fact, nearly half of all first-time mums, 46% to be precise, said the pain they experienced with their first child was better than they expected. So if you're a new mum out there getting ready to go through this, then hopefully that fills you with some confidence. I can definitely say it wasn't as bad as I had expected it to be in my head and that I had heard from everybody else that I spoke to that had given birth before me. And I guess that's probably a good time to go into our next question from Anna or Ania. Sorry, I can't quite tell with your Instagram username. Did you use anything to help with the pain? So pain management. Yes, I was reading a lot about using a comb. Now, online you can find all of these different combs. Some are wooden, some you can pay a lot of money for. You do not need to pay a lot of money. Just any standard comb for your hair works. And basically what you do is you squeeze it during each contraction and you try and focus on the sensation in your hand rather than the sensation everywhere else. It's a distraction technique, I guess. And that worked really well for me. Another thing that really helped was when I could start to feel the waves building, the contractions building, was getting Will to squeeze my hand really hard. And the point in between your thumb and your index finger, there's a little acupressure point in there. Our doula had told us about this. I'm always skeptical of these things actually working or not, but I think during the time it really, really helped me. So Will would squeeze that really hard and I just focused on that instead. And that was really, really beneficial. Right at the beginning of labour, I also had a TENS machine that I was using, and that was great. I think I got it online for £30 or something, and basically it's just this small little battery operated unit. It's got sticky electrodes that you put on your back, and it's there to help reduce the pain signals going to the spinal cord and brain, which in turn helps relieve your pain and relax your muscles. And that worked really well initially. I think after the first few hours I felt like I needed something more. And that's where counter pressure came in as well. Every time that I was feeling a contraction, either I or Will would push into my back when I was feeling it. That was also helpful. I think you just sort of utilize all of these tools around you that you can in the moment, and they all make a huge difference. When the midwife arrived, she encouraged me to get into the shower, and it was instant relief. I was on my hands and knees, and you just have the hot water pouring onto you, and it was amazing. The same feeling when you get into a pool. It's wonderful. It really, really helps with pain management. Also in the UK, when you have a home birth, the midwives do drop off a home birth kit, or at least in my area they do anyway, and within that kit there are other pain relief options and medications. So I'm not quite sure what they put in the fridge, but it is a selection of drugs. It needs to be kept chilled, so that stays in your fridge, and you get the option of gas and air canisters too. Okay, our next question is from Mary, and Mary asked, what podcast did I listen to in preparation for labour? If you know me, I am a sucker for a podcast. I think it's because I'm at home on my own most of the time, so I've always got something playing in my ears, and I have loads that I could recommend that really helped me. One that I listened to pretty much every day was called The Natural Birth Podcast by Anna the Spiritual Midwitch. I love this podcast. You listen to women's stories from all around the world, and it's not just home births or free births, it's also hospital births and midwifery-led unit births, and I just thought it was amazing hearing other people's experiences. I've always loved hearing about birth stories, especially positive ones, and each person that was interviewed right at the end of the podcast was always asked, if you were going to be given advice to a new time mum that's sitting in front of you, what would you say? And everybody had sort of different advice and something to pass on. And I just found that so helpful in the moment. It's almost like someone speaking directly to you. So that's a good one to check out if you're looking for a good resource. The next one I found beneficial was The Midwife's Cauldron by Katie James and Dr. Rachel Reed. This is very evidence-based, but I found it super helpful in preparation for labour, but also just in learning more about everything during pregnancy, and I think that a lot of people in my audience would enjoy this as well. And my last recommendation is the Normal Boring Free Birth for Normal Boring People podcast. This was just amazing for me to listen to, whether you're actually someone that would ever have a free birth or not. I know that a lot of people are really against this kind of thing. That's okay. You're allowed your own opinion. I found it amazing to listen to, so empowering. And what I liked the most is just how they normalized birth. I guess that's why it's called what it's called. But it was just really, really helpful. And I found it so inspiring listening to this podcast. So that's what I'll leave you with. Next up, we have Emma, and Emma asks, how is breastfeeding going? I found it so hard. I totally understand why you found it hard, because the first week for me was brutal. It was really quite sore to get used to, and then your milk comes in and your boobs get engorged and they just feel like they're going to burst and they're so hot to touch, and yeah, it's just not that nice to get used to. But truly, after the first week, it's been pretty bliss. I mean, we've had some ups and downs, but overall I feel really lucky. And I also feel lucky that when she came out, she kind of crawled up my chest and she latched straight away. I think she must have been a hungry girl, because it feels like she has not gotten off me since she came out. She is always feeding, and it's paying off because she's putting on some amount of weight. She is a chunky girl. I also think we are quite blessed in the UK. Again, I don't want to speak for the whole of the UK, and I'm not sure if this is just an area thing, but once you get signed off by your midwives, which is usually about 10 days after you give birth, you then get out onto your health visitor, and you also have a lactation consultant or breastfeeding specialist, I'm not quite sure what their terminology is, that works with you until you don't need the help anymore. I found that amazing. I didn't know about that. She checks in with me every week by phone. She's been out to the house a few times, and she is just so helpful. She's there if you have any issues at all. She's assessing the latch, just making sure that obviously baby's gaining the weight the baby's meant to be gaining, and they're always on call. I found this so amazing. As somebody that didn't know about this, it was an awesome service. Something else that really, really helped me, and I would recommend it to anybody who is just beginning breastfeeding, was silver cups. Get the silver cups. Basically, they just sit over your nipples and they help protect your nipples while you're breastfeeding. Silver's a natural antimicrobial, antifungal, and antibacterial metal that contains anti-inflammatory agents. How many antis did I say there? You get points for that. and it helps heal and prevent cuts, wounds, cracks, soreness, infections. I just found such a difference in the pain that I was feeling when I started wearing these. It took it away completely, and I also think it was just a really nice barrier between your boobs and your clothes. I will say that the best brand that I used was by Mugu. I think that's what they're called, because I did lose one, so I ordered some more, and I just ordered a generic set off Amazon, and they were really, really uncomfortable. They weren't malleable and they couldn't really fit your boobs properly like the other ones did. At least the other ones you could bend a little bit to your own shape and your own nipple shape. Okay, enough about nipples. Oh no, not enough about nipples, because get the nipple cream as well. Get some good nipple balm and some good breastfeeding bras, something that's going to really hold them in and support them and keep them tight. And I got the ones that you can sort of clip off right at the front, and it makes such a difference when you're out and about and you're trying to breastfeed in public as well. So there's my breastfeeding top tips. Next up we have Katie, and Katie asked, what are the home birth essentials that I need for planning a home birth? Okay, so this is going to be completely dependent on your own situation, your own setup, and what you actually want. I really, really wanted a pool. I love being in water, and I knew that that would help with pain management from everything else that I've read online as well. We did end up buying a pool because I know that we're going to use it again in the future, but you can rent pools too. So ask your community midwife or your trust about that, and that might be an option. It's definitely less expensive. And ours came with a kit. So in the kit you have your pool, you have tarpaulin to put underneath it just in case there's any leaks, or it's to protect your floor and your carpets when you're getting in and out of the pool. You also have a pump for taking the water back out, and obviously hose attachments for getting the water into there. What else came in it? A sieve came in it. Poor Will's face. I can remember when we were unpacking it and we sort of set everything up weeks before just so that we could have a trial run with this pool and make sure we knew how to do everything so that we weren't freaking out last minute trying to set it up. And he pulled the sieve out and he goes, "What's this for?" I was like, "Oh honey, that's to sort of catch anything that comes out of your body that's not meant to be in the pool." Oh, poor man. He had a lot to learn about birth, but he got there in the end, and he was a great birth partner after all. I can't really remember at the moment what else comes with your pool, but I definitely recommend, if you do get a pool, do a test run. Make sure that your boiler can deal with it. Make sure that you have enough hot water to fill the pool up. Make sure that you have the correct hose attachment, because we didn't for our tap that the hose ran to, so we had to order a different one online. And finding that out when I was in the throes of labour would have been a disaster. I think Will and I probably would have been arguing about that till this day. It's funny because someone actually messaged me on Instagram and she said that, I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this story, but she said that they found out during labour that her boiler wasn't going to cope with filling up the pool with hot water, so her husband was running around trying to boil the kettle and knocking on neighbours' doors seeing if they had any hot water, and oh my goodness, I mean, it makes for a great story, but I think in the moment it would not have been so great. So doing all of this preparation beforehand is a great way to just set you up for success in the best way that we possibly can. Towels, 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 and more towels. Make sure you have some great towels that you don't mind getting dirty. You're going to want quite a lot, especially heat them up on the radiator so that they're nice and cozy and warm for when baby comes out. Obviously that's important. You want to keep baby's temperature up when they come out of you, and maybe to cover couches, to cover floors. We actually got a few cheap waterproof shower curtains too. I didn't know that a lot of shower curtains weren't actually waterproof. So if you're going to do this and you're planning on covering your cream couch, for example, with a shower curtain, make sure that they're waterproof, because that could also be a disaster. My doula brought these big incontinence pads that you sort of put on the floor. They're like puppy training pads, and they were great as well because I was moving around so much in labour that my waters sort of kept leaking wherever I was going, and when I was pushing, I don't need to go into too many details, but they were great to have on the floor underneath you. Get the incontinence pads, get the shower curtains, get the towels, make sure that any part of your house that you don't want to get dirty is covered, because birth can be kind of messy. And some people don't have messy births, but I think mine was probably quite messy. I also got a hand mirror for when I was in the pool, just so that I could see what was going on. Again, not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and a lot of people don't want to see what's happening. They don't want to see a baby's head coming out of them, but it was helpful for me to kind of see where I was and what was going on down there. My midwife recommended that I get a jug for being in the pool, and I didn't know why she was recommending that, but a lot of women can't get from the pool to the toilet if they need to pee, so they can just sort of stand up and pee in the jug. Gosh, we are really talking about everything this episode, aren't we? So we had a nice big jug by the pool as well. I think all of these things are hopefully beneficial for other people who are planning home births to hear, because there were so many things that I hadn't thought about that I was learning along the way, like, okay, that makes sense, and I was taking it on board. The last thing that I will recommend having, no matter where you're giving birth, whether in a hospital, at home, or in a forest, is this water bottle that's specifically designed for labour. It's got this really long straw that comes off it. I thought it was kind of a marketing gimmick, and I saw loads of people recommending it on TikTok, and you never want to really buy into all of these things, right? You're a wee bit skeptical when everyone's going on about it, but I ended up getting it, and it was a game changer. Basically, like when I was in the shower, Will was just sticking the straw in to keep my fluids up, to make sure that you're still drinking, because the last thing you can really think about when you're in labour land is picking up a glass of water. I know that sounds bizarre, and I didn't really think about it beforehand, but I'm glad that I got that. And it's got this little bit at the end that you bite so you can sort of soak the juice through, and even biting something when you're in labour is nice. So if I could recommend one thing to go off and buy, I don't usually like doing that, but the labour water bottle was great. Next up, we have Emily. Oh, hi, Emily. I really like your name. Emily asks, how was your postpartum experience? Do you have any ways that you would have made it easier? Overall, I think my postpartum experience was probably quite good. The one thing that I was not prepared for was just how intense your emotions are those few days or up to a week after giving birth. Now, I read about this. I read about the hormone drop being so intense that, is it 3 days in or something? It's the equivalent of stopping taking 1,000 birth control pills at once. I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. Fact check me on that. It was something crazy. And I thought, well, I consider myself quite a stable person. It's not really going to be that intense. It was intense. I was just crying over everything. I can remember sitting in the living room, and my mum and dad, bless them, they took our 2 dogs for us just to give us some breathing space and settle in with the baby. And our dogs like to bark at things, and it just gave us that much needed peace that, again, we really needed that first week. So we're sitting there about day 3, and Will mentioned Vigo, which is my little miniature schnauzer, and I just looked at him and he goes, no, Emily, it's fine, no. And I goes, Vigo! And I was just in floods of tears because I missed my dog. And it's funny now, but at the time it was like my whole world came crashing down because I hadn't seen my dog in 3 days. You can probably tell from that story just how intense it is. It's hard. I mean, you're sleep deprived, your body hurts, you've just been through one of the biggest things that we are designed to do as human beings. I just didn't know that it was going to be like that. It's comforting in a way to know that everybody else goes through this as well. Like, it's normal. You're going to be hormonal. You're going to be all over the place. And I think maybe those emotions were probably really high and really low for maybe up to a week. And then they started balancing out for me. And the most important thing for me, I think, was just not to put pressure on myself. And we really stayed in for a long time. I did like the 5-5-5 rule, which is 5 days in the bed, 5 days on the bed, and 5 days near the bed. And this just gives you a solid 2 weeks of really good intentional rest. And we sort of kept visitors at bay. We didn't really want to be taking too many people into the house. It's a big adjustment getting used to having a baby and your relationship changing and your body changing and all of this happening at once. And I just kind of thought, everybody else except our immediate family and our parents can just wait, because this is such a big transitional period, such a big time for us. And I think that really helped. You know, there was no expectations from other people. We just got to stay in our happy little love bubble and figure everything out. So if I could recommend, doing that, then I definitely would. Everybody's different. I know that some people are dying to get out of the house and introduce their baby and see everyone again. Just do whatever works best for you. The one thing that I did prioritize was getting a shower and clean pajamas on every single day. So although I did stay in bed for pretty much a week, that was really important to me. I just like to feel clean. It was like the one part of normality that I had in my day. I would give Rosemary to Will and I would just have 20 minutes undisturbed to put moisturizer on my body, to clean myself, to clean my hair. And I know that sounds like it's nothing, but you need to prioritize you as well when you have a baby, because that quickly goes out the window. And lastly, one other way that I think made it easier for us and that I would recommend to anyone doing is to prepare a bunch of meals in advance, freezer meals, so that it's the last thing that you need to think about in amongst everything else, because some days you would even forget to eat when you're staring at this newborn or when this newborn is taking all of your attention. Put up some meals for yourself. Don't give yourself more things to do while baby's here. Our friends and family were very good to us. People were dropping off meals on the doorstep and just making sure that we were still nourished and eating, because that's also important. It was just lovely. I know other places do like meal trains, and if someone offers you food, take the food. Definitely take the food. It's such a beautiful way to show someone that you care about them. Maybe it's my love language, but I love getting food and I love giving food. Angie asked, how is your recovery going? My recovery is going really well, thank you for asking. I'm 1 month down the line now and I'm pretty much feeling back to normal, if there ever was a normal to go back to. I think a big part to do with that is simply because I rested a lot, and also this is my first kid. I mean, my body's still in pretty good condition. This could change with my subsequent children that we do plan to have, so I'm not going to be on my high horse about feeling good already. I'm just taking it easy. I'm not rushing back into exercising. I'm just doing some yoga, some stretching, and just doing whatever feels good for my body. I have been taking a lot of sitz baths and herbal baths, and I think that's also helped, just sort of soaking down there and letting everything heal up. And yeah, it's great. I did get a lot of questions too about herbal baths and what you do, and I literally just put everything into the bath with me. So I would bath with rosemary, and I like to use roses as well. And comfrey. I use comfrey a lot anyway. It's such a wonderful plant with so many healing properties, but it's really, really great for helping repair tissue, to help soothe and minimize swelling and tears. And it is one of these plants that it is sometimes recommended against using. So again, please do your own research and don't just use comfrey because I use comfrey. Other herbs that are really great to use are calendula, lavender, chamomile, yarrow. Just have a look online. You don't need to overcomplicate it, or see what's around you, what's growing in your area, take it, dry it, stick it in your bath, and that's it. See what you're drawn to. If you're unsure, always look things up. You don't want to be bathing with the likes of poison ivy, obviously. So a little bit of common sense goes a really long way. And again, you can find the medicinal and healing properties of all of these things online. You don't learn these things overnight, but it's not hard to learn. We have so much information at our fingertips with the internet, and this is how I learned everything. I mean, go back a few years ago and I knew none of this. I was just so oblivious to what was around us and what we could use to help heal us. Jenny asked what tea was in the labour reel that I made. So she's referring to the pregnancy tea that I spoke about on Instagram. And what is in that is a mix of nettles, oat straw, red raspberry leaf and alfalfa. This is a really common tea that women drink typically in later pregnancy. It's called the Nora pregnancy tea. I read a lot about this tea and it comes with so many benefits from what I could tell. I felt great from drinking it. I didn't really like the taste, so I would have it with honey or mix it in with some coconut water, or you could mix it in with cranberry juice, just whatever you want to get in the nutrients. Let's have a look at what it says online. So this powerful tea mixture can supercharge your immune system, decrease feelings of stress, lower blood pressure, potentially shorten the length of your labour. Well, that didn't happen for me. Alleviate hemorrhoids, prevent premature rupture of the membranes, reduce your risk of the use of cesarean, forceps or vacuum birth, reduce blood loss at birth and more. So that's initially what I looked into it for. I thought when I was at home, one of the things that kept concerning me was maybe postpartum hemorrhage, and I think again that was something that was put into my head by other people. People would say, so what are you going to do if you start bleeding after birth and you're not in the hospital? And it's a very valid question to ask, because what would you do? And one of the solutions that I sort of came to was drinking this tea. It's been found to contain a lot of iron, so every birth includes some amount of blood loss, but drinking this pregnancy tea and getting your daily iron can help prevent losing too much blood. Another herb that I did take after birth of the placenta, is called shepherd's purse, and I took that in a tincture form. I didn't make it, I bought this online. But it's been shown that shepherd's purse may help with postpartum hemorrhage or bleeding after childbirth. The same goes for menstrual bleeding, and it was a study done on 100 women with postpartum hemorrhage found that the hormone oxytocin reduced bleeding in one group. However, another group taking both oxytocin and 10 drops of shepherd's purse experienced a significantly greater decrease. So that shows it when it's in use with oxytocin. But a lot of people swear by it, so I just took it as a preventative measure, and I didn't bleed that much. Next up, we have Miranda, and Miranda asked, how does Will feel about the birth experience? Great question. I actually wonder if I call him through just now, will he come on the podcast? Because he's always told me that he would never come on the podcast. I wonder if we catch him in the act, might he change his mind? Give me 2 seconds. So somebody on Instagram just asked how you found the birth experience. Oh. I decided to call you in and see if we could get your input on this, but you're going to need to come right in close to the microphone and put on your best voice for everybody. If you stay about a fist away from the microphone, please. So, Will, how did you find the birth experience?
Oh, wow. I don't know, I'm really, really lost for words. Can we please stop this now?
Well, give the people what they want.
It was amazing. And also, no, it actually wasn't terrifying, to be honest with you. I was about to say amazing and terrifying, but that sounds very generic. You're obviously concerned for your loved one, and it's very difficult because, well, as a man, I always find that if there's something wrong, you always try and fix it. Whereas, so Emily was clearly in pain, but it was good pain. But there's nothing you can do about it, which was the only thing that was the hardest thing I found, was you just have to watch your loved one in pain. But it's good pain with a purpose, as you told me.
Pain with a purpose, and you were a really good birth support.
Yeah, but it was very amazing, and it gives you a sort of newfound appreciation for what, well, women and I suppose people can do. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know, I haven't even listened to your first podcast, to be truthful with you.
That's supportive of you, honey. Thank you.
So I don't know all you've told them, but I think you were in labour for, I don't know how long it was. It was almost 2 days. Mm-hmm. So it was like 2 days with like no sleep, but you still managed to push through. So yeah, it was very amazing.
Oh, thank you, darling. And how are you finding fatherhood?
It's good, actually. It is. I was about to say challenging, but it's not too bad. Mm-hmm. I think you've got the brunt of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm saying a lot of airs.
That's okay. First podcast.
And last, hopefully.
Oh, no, I think everyone's going to want you back on after this. Okay, will I release you?
Yeah.
You're looking quite uncomfortable.
That was the most stressful thing I've ever had to do.
Yep, that's why we sprung it on you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that one, because I don't think he's ever going to answer me when I call him in here recording a podcast again. I'm going to take 2 more questions. We have one here from Laura, and she says, now that you have your little princess, what are some baby must-have things to buy? Very, very good question. So you're obviously going to want nappies, baby girls, whatever you're dressing your baby in and changing your baby in. that's pretty standard. You don't need me to tell you that. So I'm just going to pick out the things that I have found super helpful during the days and nights of having a newborn. Number one is this bedside lamp that's got different settings. You can turn it up and down, and it's got this red light setting. It's actually got loads of different colours. But the red light is really, really good for nighttime so that you're not waking your baby up completely when you're feeding them or changing them. It also stimulates melatonin, the hormone which is responsible for making us sleepy, and it improves muscle regeneration, which helps with your muscle gain. Not that I'm getting gains just now, but it's nice to know that I'm keeping baby sleepy, and I've just found it amazing. It's also good because when I have it on the lowest setting, it's easy enough for me to sleep through with a sort of nightlight so that I can still watch her. Is anyone else like that with their baby? Like, she'll fall asleep and I'm like, I should really go to sleep. My eyes are so tired. My body is so tired. But there's still part of me that needs to watch her chest rise and fall and make sure that she's okay when she's lying there. So the nightlight is great for that. I think I just got mine off Amazon. You can get loads of different versions, but that has been amazing for us. Another thing I did end up getting through recommendations from other people was a white noise machine. And again, I really, really like that. There's loads of different settings on the one that I got. I just put it on low for night times when she is struggling to get to sleep. I'm trying not to use it all the time because I don't want her to get used to having to fall asleep with white noise, and then she's going to struggle if she doesn't have white noise. But there's another suggestion: muslin cloths until they are coming out of your ears. If you think that you have enough muslin cloths, you don't. Get more. And you know what? They've been one of my favourite presents that we have received from people as well. Babies don't need more toys. They need more muslin cloths because they upchuck and spew everywhere. So get some of them. And lastly, this is a little bit gross, but I feel like we have covered absolutely everything else in this podcast today. I got this thing called a snot sucker. And it's like a little siphon. I know you get ones that are like bulbs, but it's like a little siphon. You pop it just at the base of their nostril. It doesn't go inside their nose, and then you suck the snot out. It can't go into your mouth because it's got a little filter, but babies, or our baby, is so congested, and I could see the boogers in the back of her nose, and it's hard because obviously you want to tell them to blow their nose, but they can't blow their nose because they're a baby. So that has been great. I really, really, really just appreciated that, and she is so happy when I do it. I thought she would cry, I thought she wouldn't like it, but I think it's giving her relief as well, because then she can breathe, because babies can't breathe through their mouths, they can only breathe through their nose. There's another top tip. In fact, I'm going to go fact check that just now because I don't want to be spreading misinformation on here. Okay, I wasn't lying. Studies show that babies can't breathe through their mouth until they are 3 or 4 months old. So there we go. Get the snot sucker because you're probably going to need it at some point. And our final question of the episode is from Alyssa. Alyssa asks, do you plan on freeze drying some breast milk for storage? Well, hey, we're back to the preparedness side of things. Yes. I have just been trying to make sure that I've got breastfeeding nailed, and before I even get into any of that. So I am starting to express now. I've been freezing some, and then when I've got a good bank stored in the freezer, I'm going to keep some in the freezer, but also take some out to put into the freeze dryer to turn into formula. And then you've got instant formula, but it's your own breast milk. So we're building up to that. I do want to have some form of backup so that I can start leaving her with like Will and my grandparents, not just now, she's still a month, but when I feel a little bit more comfortable, because we need to get back to being an independent human being of some sort, and it would be really, really nice to have the option of leaving her for an hour or two. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up now. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for having me playing in your ears just now. I hope you're enjoying this podcast. If you are, and you're feeling kind, and only if you're feeling kind, please leave a review to help other people find this podcast. I really appreciate hearing from you, getting your feedback, messages, and if there's any topics in particular that you really want me to go into, then please just send me a message. I do have a bank of things that I'm going to ramble about every week, but if there's something that you need help with, never feel like you can't reach out, because that's what I'm here for. So, thank you again, and I will see you all next Wednesday.